Welcome to Agency Ascend, the podcast for independent insurance agents who want to build something real and build it the right way. I'm Chad Brummett, our COO for Coverica Agency Alliance, and with me today, as always, is Ms. Jessica McBurney, our regional RVP. So, Jessica, today we've actually got a bit of a change, just you and I. Yeah. So, hopefully, you'll be able to keep me honest and moving forward and keep me between the lines, right?
I think we can do that.
Actually, for today, it should be pretty easy, given the topic. So we've had a lot of conversation around contracts and things like that. But at the end of the day, if we get down to it, what we're really talking about is decisions.
Absolutely. Decisions
that agent owners, for existing agencies or scratch, people that are wanting to come into the market. Mm-hmm. It's really decisions on if they're going to join a network, right? If they're going to avoid the captive model and they know they want to do something together, joining a network, what's the best network and why?
Yeah.
Right?
What's the best partnership or affiliation for them?
Yeah. And, full disclaimer, obviously, yes, we are a network and yes, we are very proud of what we do. At the same time, we realize that what we do doesn't fit everybody.
Agreed.
And what everybody wants, we may not be able to provide. So this is yes, we have a bias in this. At the same time, we just want to give everybody a real option and see what it is. And if we were to break it into, 4 or 5 different types of primary, aggregators, networks, clusters, whatever you want to call it, kind of give them the pros and cons of each, right?
Yeah. I think that's super helpful because, as you know, and I don't know if our audience knows, I learned about SIA coming from the captive model myself, but I actually started reaching out to all these different clusters and aggregators because I had interest in starting my own agency at the time. And the timing didn't end up being right for me, but that was how I started talking to Coverica Agency Alliance. So I get on a very deep level how important it is to understand the landscape of what you're walking into, but I encourage everybody to go look at other groups because I think it's important to understand what you're getting. And when you do operate and signing that agreement to get that partnership started, that you feel like you have found a fit that fits the very best that it can for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I have to say that's pretty revealing that you didn't always want to be an RVP.
Yep, that's true.
For a network. I mean, I figured like Jessica in kindergarten was walking around going, I'm going to be in insurance.
I was like, you know what? I drew little policies on the coloring book pages. I was like, this is a deck page.
Sweet. No. All right. So as we think about it, we'll leave our model last.
Okay.
Right? Or maybe we'll throw it in the middle so that way it's just kind of sandwiched in there.
See where it naturally
right?
falls.
Yeah, see where it naturally falls. If we're going to talk about the different ones, we've got like our easy entry groups, right? That just anybody can go to. We've got our volume models. Then we've got like that elite group where you need to have $5 million in premium, a bigger shop really to fit.
At least.
You got franchise models and everything in between, right? Mm-hmm. So which one do you want to tackle first?
I think looking at the easy entry type of a cluster,
okay,
I think it's a good starting ground because I think that when we talk about a lower barrier to entry, this is something that everybody can look at. And we can kind of start there and then maybe we'll funnel down and talk about the more elitist type models and go from there.
Fair enough.
I think oftentimes this attracts everybody from that scratch, maybe not true scratch, because most models...
Hold on, let's back up.
Okay.
Scratch. Define scratch.
See, there we go. And that's already where we're headed. And I'm already going to talk about our model because I think that we define this differently than most.
Yep.
In the industry as a whole, most groups, cluster, aggregator, and we should probably talk about those terms and the differences. Right. But whatever the network affiliation is, generally they're going to require 2 to 3 years of experience. And if you don't have a book of business or a foundation, you're going to be considered scratch. So whether that's a producer leaving an existing agency that's starting off on their own, whether that's a captive agent or a franchise model agent that has to sell the agency either back to the group or to somebody else, they have to leave behind all that premium. One of the other things that constitutes a scratch, I think a lot of people don't understand when we're talking about selling back that book, is that in some of these easy entry cluster type models, oftentimes you have to leave your book of business there if you were to exit. So any vertical that makes you leave your book of business there means you're going to have to start over somewhere else if you want to stay in the industry, right? So if you're starting over and your entity doesn't have premium to account for or very little, you're going to be considered a scratch model because you don't have a viable track record to really show a carrier other than, hey, here's my producer rap sheet.
Yeah. So scratch is literally, I'm starting from scratch.
I'm building.
With zero book, but I have a knowledge base to build on.
Yes.
Okay.
Great way of putting it. Knowledge base to build on.
Awesome. One more thing. So quickly define the difference between your aggregator, cluster. Yeah.
So I feel like I get this question a lot, and people walk in and they say, you're an aggregator, you're a network, you're an alliance. Yeah, they all have some similarities, but they all have some differences. When I think of aggregator, I think of a true aggregation play. The core definition behind that group is that we're aggregating premium. So we're taking my $5 million in premium, your $5 million in premium, we're rolling it up. Now we're $10 million in premium. We're getting better profit sharing deals. At the core, the whole premise is we're aggregating. There's cluster groups, which when I think of a cluster, I think of similar to an aggregator where it's like, hey, we're a little cluster of agencies. We're not really looking to expand that much bigger, but we're a cluster in that we're not really going to help you get any direct appointments. We don't really have the bandwidth to have all the carrier relationships, but we'll roll up our premium to get better profit sharing. When you get into the networks or the alliances, that's where I believe you have more robust models where it's, hey, we do have this level to our relationship that is aggregation where we want to roll up your premium, but we also recognize you need things like carrier access. And then with carrier access, it could be, do you have the actual availability or path to be able to get to the carriers and get direct appointments? Do you have these other auxiliary benefits like coaching, resources, support? And that's where I think it really gets into the nuances of the model.
Okay. So it's an aggregation plus.
Aggregation plus. Pretty much everything is aggregation plus.
Yeah.
Can't really do anything without it.
Yeah. So it really just depends upon how much of that plus, right? And whether the aggregation moves beyond just a foundational building block versus
this is all we do. Yeah. Is this all we do? Or do we do a bunch of things to keep building, scaling past that?
Perfect. So now that we know that scratch means zero book, some experience, knowledge base to build on, and most likely an easy entry cluster model is more a regional play and their aggregation at its core, right?
Yeah, I would say so.
Okay, so now what's the advantage for somebody coming in? Why would I choose an easy entry?
Well, there's how things are sold to you, which is an element.
There's the salesperson always has to do their job.
Right? The salesperson needs to do their job. But I think there's a couple of things that really attract people to these models. Number one, we've talked about this component, lower barrier to entry. Yep. You're going to have a lower fee to get in if there is one. Typically no exit, which we can talk about why there's no type of exit fee or clause, or it's not
because you can't get out.
Clearly outlined. It feels like a less of a strings attached model, right? Okay. You're dating without any commitment.
Ooh.
But, that's the best way that I can put it. It's going on, they think they're going on a bunch of first dates kind of a thing. We're going to go, to Costco and get a piece of pizza rather than a nice dinner. Okay, anyways, I'm going down weird analogies.
Yeah. Well, so I asked you to keep me between the lines. Now I need you to stay between the lines.
Well, we knew that was going to be a problem anyways. All that to say, in a easy entry cluster type of a model, the barrier to entry is lower because of a couple of things. Number one, the whole play of that group is that they are going to maintain the business. They're a true big MGA. So I think you're going to see less conversations around preparation and resources toward direct appointments, less conversations on how you get to that, because they're not really looking to help an agency get a direct appointment. They're looking for an agency to produce under their umbrella. So for them, whether you produce $500,000 in premium or $5 million in premium, they're still winning. Because here's the thing. Should you choose to exit that model, there's a big decision that you have to make. There's either some type of valuation where they will allow you to sell within the group. If you've become a really big agency with them, maybe you have some leverage and they make some concessions in the contract to allow you to do something different. But overall, should you choose to leave, they're going to maintain the premium. Most of them also have clauses that say you cannot even work with the carriers that you wrote through them for a period of time. Generally some type of 2-year non-compete. So what feels very non-committal up front starts to have some pretty big downstream effects when you look at the longevity of scaling a business.
Yeah. So beyond barrier to entry, right?
Mm-hmm.
What's the big advantage? Is it do I ramp faster? Do I or is that still really dependent upon how I am as
I think it's all dependent on how you are as an agent. I mean, when I've really dug into some of those models, one of the things that sticks out to me the most is that most of the time there's large national representation, but not as much regional. So this is more of a national play where they're saying, hey, we represent $1 billion in premium across the whole US. That means that you're not going to have a deep penetration in a single market.
Yeah.
So it can be really difficult, especially if you're starting an agency in a hard market like a Texas or a Florida or a California, or let's not even talk about a New York kind of a thing, is unless you really have a regionally based set of representatives that go deep in that market, it's probably going to be hard to get your carriers, especially on the personal line side of things. Most of those I've seen, they may have some standard commercial markets where you're able to kind of play in that space, or you end up going to E&S markets and kind of building there. But I think that this was also different 4 or 5 years ago when personal lines was more open.
Yeah. Well, and also if you're coming in under some of those clusters, you're actually just writing under their code anyways.
Yeah. And
so they could already have all the codes, all the lines that you want.
Mm-hmm.
But
well, that's best case scenario, to be honest with you, Chad, is like that you come in and you write under their codes. And I think there's a large group of people that understand that. But the harsher reality is in 2026, they may not have a lot of codes, or they may have Travelers personal lines nationally, but that doesn't mean that you can write Travelers personal lines in Texas, so to speak.
Yeah.
So there's a lot more nuances in the conversation to really understand, am I walking into this and is the carrier subset going to be something that I can write with? And I think that's not what a lot of people always look at. But the reality is it's hard no matter what right now.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. So if I'm a growth-minded person,
Mm-hmm.
and I know that 15, 20 years, I'll probably want to have an exit.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That model?
Should I be looking at that model?
I would not entirely suggest it, no. I mean, I think that the reality is that if somebody is truly, truly going to be successful, you could put them in most models and they're going to find a way to get to success, right? Or they're going to quickly realize it's not what they want and they're going to shift.
Yep.
So, to answer your core question that I don't think I answered before, it all has to do with somebody that's growth minded. But if somebody is looking for true ownership and they want to be able to sell, they want to be able to have the direct appointments to be able to transfer to a new owner. You're not going to get that in these easy barrier to entry cluster models. This is more what I think of when I think of somebody that this really fits is there's tons of people that I talk to all the time and they're in, life and health. They're in the benefit space. Maybe they work at an enterprise car rental. They work at a, car lot or something like that where they recognize how important insurance is and they see how many people need it. And they have a deep interest in going out and building their own book. And they understand that they want ownership to a degree. And it's almost like a robust sub-producer agreement because they can go in, they're, an independent contractor. They don't inherently need to have any minimums. They're not going to, terminate them for not producing something, but they can write a little bit of business and they're not inherently looking at this as the bread and butter to scale something largely. They're looking at it as a side hustle. And then if a side hustle becomes a reality, or maybe you just don't have the financial backing or even the knowledge capacity to really build something robust right now, it could be something where it's a nice side hustle because, again, low barrier to entry. But if you leave, you're not going to take anything with you. So it's great side money.
Yeah. And then also at that point in time, if you see that it can become something that is permanent for you, then you can be strategic and say, all right, then at what point in time do I go and just cut the ties and start over, scratch somewhere else?
That's what if I were to walk into that,
teeth.
I would. I'd be looking at it through that lens of it's a temporary opportunity.
All right. What about complete other end of the spectrum?
Ooh,
Let's go with, I know you said funnel down, but I like the contrast. What about
I'm tracking.
Going to that elite model?
Ooh.
Right? I mean, who is that elite model really designed for? Mm-hmm. And why would they look at that versus just a core aggregator model? And while you're answering, Sir Isaac, can we look just for grins in the DFW Metroplex? How many just pure cluster models there are available in the market versus kind of some of these higher end people? Because I'd be curious to know that.
Yeah. Some real live data.
Yeah.
I love it.
There we go.
I think when it comes to like these elite institutional models, that these are really built for the high performing agencies, right? They've built this.
What is high performing?
I think each one is different, right? I mean, I know at the beginning we kind of talked about $5 million in premium. I think with premium increases today, that's a schmedium agency.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that that's high performing. I think that they would consider that. I think that if they were very commercial focused, I think most of these elite institutional models are.
Did I say premium? I'm sorry, I meant revenue.
Okay. That I hear you on that one then. I think that's more so what these more elitist institution models are looking for is, hey, they've made it past what 80% of small agencies make it to. They have a rhythm, they have a process, they know how to write, they have the connections, they've got the carriers. They're not building with them to get carrier access. And the whole point isn't carrier access is what I'm saying. The point is we're going to scale to the next level. So that may be super elitist contracts, that may be aggregation at another level, but really they're just forming an elitist group where it's probably, hey, we're more profitable. We're also going to take you to the next level. I mean, I think that's...
So what does that next level look like, right? Because if I'll put my business owner hat on. Okay. If I've been able to build an agency, get to $5 million in revenue. Mm-hmm. I've got most of the contracts that I want out there. Mm-hmm. Why would I join somebody and potentially have to give something up?
You know, from what I've seen of this, and again, I think it's elitist for a reason where you're going to see a much smaller group that's in that. And I think that when we start talking about those elite agencies, there's probably going to be a start contract in those that are actually looking to build versus those that are like, just running the shop and maintaining, right? Because there's plateaus at different levels. And I'm sure, I have not run an agency at that level, but I'm sure at that level that you are looking at some stark plateaus where you're going to have to make some pretty large investments to continue to grow, whether that be organically or through M&A. And I think one of the attractive things that I'm thinking of in one particular model is they have a huge M&A sector, right? And so that's capital resources, that's, ability to compete with private equity this day and age. It's also the advisors and the resources that are behind it are, hey, we vetted you, you're a decent player in the space. We come to the table with the capital, with the backing of the financial institutions. Yeah. We're playing a completely different game here, right? Like we're not just aggregating to aggregate premium. Like we are trying to compete in a space that has had a lot of money thrown at it and has changed the landscape of M&A over the past year. So I think if, we're putting on our business owner hat, we're running that agency that is at that revenue level, we also may need some muscles in some different areas to actually really be able to go compete, right? Because even a 2 to 5 million in revenue shop, they may need some pretty decent financial backing to be able to go against these PE offers to grow great organic premium, right? And to continue to grow in that space. So I think that is more of an M&A play and also maybe a baked in buyer for them too, where they've got some options as well.
To answer your question, Chad, there's no exact number popping up, but as far as the leading resource for all these is coming up as SIAA or Coverica. So it might have something to do with my search history. But, just throwing that out
I like
there.
your search history.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. So would another thing be for these elite agencies? So if you think about it, if they're elite, they're not just going after your standard market PNC, right? They're more middle market, high net worth, more specialized lines. And at that point, we're also now going against our really big players, Marshes, Higginbothams, those guys, right?
Absolutely.
So does this elite group, elite network, is that a way for them to get enough muscle collectively to actually be able to compete with them on a national level, even though they might still just be a regional player? Is that the other advantage?
I definitely think that would be part of it, right? Is like at that aggregation play that they are able to compete at that level and that they're also working toward those elitist contracts that make those large agencies really stand out. Yeah. Because one of the things that really helps those larger agencies is that they have contracts nobody else can get. So when we're talking about policing risks, that's a huge hurdle for the small guys that he just doesn't have access to some of these guys and they don't understand why. But it's the politicking and it's the the proving yourself among time, and it's getting big enough to say I can support this code. And so I think joining those elitist models, it's hey, we've got a harder vetting system. There's a much higher barrier to entry. You have to be at this level to get in. And this is where we're aiming that you go with it as well. So
yeah, because I can say they're probably pretty big on growth-minded owners coming in.
I would think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. One other question on them. What about resources? So we talked about like that cluster model. You get some. I mean, we all have to offer some level of resources, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I would expect. I mean, they're probably talking certified risk people on just a different level.
I think you're gonna have very specialized resources, right? Like it's gonna need to really fit when it comes to resource wise. That certified risk manager, but you're looking at your resources are in middle market, right? The contacts are going to be with middle market underwriters. If you've built your whole agency on small commercial, or if you all of a sudden decide you have a small commercial book and you have some middle market, but you actually decide you want to tackle personal lines, that's not going to be that group, right? Like they're going to be specialized on the very specific niche things that they do, and that's what they're going to offer. Now, if you're in it for M&A, if you're in it to get into those middle market risks, the other thing is, I mean, it's two-pronged, right? You have to have the opportunities to deliver it, and you have to have the capital. You have to be at the right place for your agency to be able to capitalize on those specialized resources. So I think it's definitely a very different play.
Fair enough. So now somewhere in the middle lies our volume negotiator, true aggregator, right? Not a cluster, but a true aggregator.
Mm-hmm.
What profile agency really matches with that?
I think what that group is going after, I will say, is, probably a minimum of $3 million in premium with several years of experience. They're not looking for the captive agent going independent. They're not looking for the scratch. They're not looking for the producer. They're looking for an existing agency with a profitable book that's a decent size that they can aggregate up. And their whole play is, negotiation with carriers. They're not overly expansive when it comes to resources on direct appointments. They're not really like carving the path for you. They're not pioneering through the wilderness, but they probably have some specialized things that can help with some elements. But they're in it for, I'm not teaching you 101, 201, or 301. You've built it, cool. But if you join us, you're going to make more.
Okay. Purely an EBITDA model.
It's
what
grow it.
You're going to pay us a little bit.
Next level.
You're going to earn more.
Yeah, we're going to have more carriers, but a lot of it is you need to know what you're doing and be running.
So they might have more carriers, right? Who's advocating for these agents on their behalf within the carriers within these models?
Good question. Again, this has so much to do with. And I think this is a really important time to stop and break down this piece that is crucial for agency owners to understand when they're looking at some type of group affiliation. Is your group nationally based? Is your group regionally based? Are you uniquely positioned to have both? I've not seen a lot that can do that. Here's why I say that. If you are nationally based, most likely you may have one, maybe two people in, let's say, the Texas market that represent that organization. If you got, let's just say even 20 agents across Texas, and you got one person that is doing recruiting, that is doing territory management of those codes, that's liaising between the national company and between the individual agency, and is also liaising between the carrier representatives in that agency, how much support do you think you're going to get there?
Unless I'm the squeakiest wheel, I'm getting nothing.
Yeah, right? And they're also focused on bringing on new members, so they have a bottom line for their job that they're trying to attain.
Yeah.
So nationally, unless it's a national group and it's like, hey, we're based out of Dallas, we live, breathe Dallas, 90% of our base is in Dallas, we do Dallas, right? Then that's something to consider. But if you're in Dallas and they're based out of Colorado or they're based out of, New York, you're probably not going to get the resources and support that you're looking for. And for some of those negotiation or those, what did we call them? Negotiation-oriented models?
Pure aggregation.
Aggregation model,
volume model, right?
Volume model, you're going to probably have less boots on the ground because their group is expanded over a national expanse. When we look at more regionally based, we have a different set of problems because if you are regionally based, hopefully you do have the resources and support to really dive into that model. But again, the question is, do you have a person that's regionally based and they're still trying to talk to people nationally? Because there are groups like that where it's, hey, I'm based out of this area, 40-50% of my agency base is here, but all of a sudden now we want to expand, so we're also recruiting in Florida and Pennsylvania.
And I would also think that the regional players, they're probably not going to have the same profit share deals, PMSF deals as the
100%.
national players.
Yeah.
So it's better than what I could get on my own, but it's not as good
robust
as what I could get from a national player.
So
do I get local support?
Great point. Absolutely.
Local support, but give up a little bit?
Yeah.
Or do I get national money with less local support? Which at the same time, if I'm a true entrepreneur and I've built something up and I'm not at that elite level, but I want to be able to have more resources, more access than what I have now, that's probably not a bad play.
Yeah. I was going to say, if I had to pick between the two and I was a growing agency, I would look for the regional resources, depending on how I wrote, right? I'm thinking about a locally based agency. If you're an agency that's commercially focused and you're writing one type of business across multiple states, I think that's a national play. I'd go with a national group. But if you are I'm a local agency, 80% of my business is in at least Texas, if not, one market of Texas, I'm looking for a regional group because they're working with the carriers that I need. They're working with the carriers I'm working with, and they're going to have the relationships with the carriers that I need.
Which in Texas alone, that's very different. The carrier mix and the product mix that we need for DFW versus West Texas versus coastal.
It's basically a bunch of different states.
Yeah.
They just put them all together. Yeah.
It's a great thing about being in Texas.
Wild West.
Absolutely. Yeah. All right. So we've covered our easy entry, right?
Yes, we have.
Our elite, pure aggregation. Now, something that's probably the newest model of them all, and one that heard very mixed reviews on, franchise models. Not our captives, but our franchise independent
models. Yeah.
Our fill-in-the-blank animal.
Yeah, our brand first groups.
Yeah.
It's interesting because I think they've picked up a lot of speed, right? And especially for us being in Dallas-Fort Worth, where there's a major brand.
Some very expensive speed, though.
Well, and that's what I was going to bring up next is I think that for some entrepreneurs, and you tell me what your thought process is on chat, I'm interested to hear, there is some comfort in paying into something because they feel like it's verified, right? Like I'm getting value because if I'm willing to pay for it, there's this large brand recognition and I must be walking into something that works because I'm paying a lot of money and this brand is viable. And there's some type of sense of security in buying into a brand versus building. Thoughts?
Yeah, there's the psychology behind that is very real. I mean, look at the Peloton exercise. Now, granted, they're now back in the dumper, but so we won't talk about longevity, but they were struggling. The short story, they were struggling. So what they do, they raise their prices. Same product, same offering, raise their prices, and then
revamp the sales team
and just hit it out of the park, right? Because at the end of the day, what people thought was, how could I possibly get a good workout and a good product on something this cheap? So franchise models, there's definitely some that see that. But from a true entrepreneur standpoint, the thing that, from my space at least, the drawback to a franchise is I'm building somebody else's equity.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think,
and why would I want to invest significant capital, more capital than any of these other models? In fact, probably you could go join all of those other models and probably still have less
for the initial, yeah.
Well, and on the exit, because when I leave, I have to leave I'm leaving a brand. So we won't just talk financial, but let's talk about brand equity. I, Chad, have built a X agency with this brand. So when I go to get these carriers on board, unless I've become like a top 1%er, these carriers don't know me from anybody. So I'm starting back over as a scratch agent
Yes, you are.
after investing that much money in. That kills me.
And we see it, right? Like we actively see this. I think people walk into that model, and there's a lot of reasons why, and there's some really beautifully carved out paths on how to build an agency. And the truth is that there's some phenomenally successful agency owners in those.
Absolutely.
The conversations are almost painful, especially when they realize what they could be making when they're not giving up a large portion of their renewals to that brand. Because the other thing is you know,
so
that's
so
a huge part.
they make their money when you sign up. I'm sorry, the money
Just starting. Yep.
is big money,
You're buying in.
and then I don't get all my money on renewals.
Royalty fees, yeah. Most of them are, that I've seen, can be upwards of 30 to 50% that you're giving up. I mean, on average, I think 50% on renewals, where you're getting all of your new business, let's just call it new business commission, whatever that percentage is, right? And then your renewal, whether that's for, you know, cost of being a part of the franchise, whether that's, you know, labeled underneath this umbrella of service. What's really interesting right now, or what's really interesting, is you're seeing some where the whole model was, hey, we're going to service for you. So you don't need to have staff. You just need to produce. So if you're the killer producer, go build an agency by connecting, and you work on connecting, and we'll have the back end that does all the service. But now that all these, you know, carriers are looking for growth, these franchisers are coming back in and pushing, well, actually, we want you to hire. Well, actually, we want you to grow too. On top of that.
Well, so at least at first.
It's very hard to be a lifestyle agency. I'll say that in that model.
So at first it sounded like I'm not really building a business. I'm building like a really high paying job. Right? But now,
I mean,
now you're saying
the only job you have to pay to get into.
And not only that, but I'm going to have to now hire people. I'm going to have to pay people my own salary so that I can afford to keep my job.
I mean, that's a big question, right? As a business owner, buying yourself a job.
I think we're in the wrong business.
Franchise banners going up soon.
No,
I hear you on that. I think it's real interesting on that, right? Because you see people walk into that are successful, and I think sometimes the question is why, when you can go build it outside of that. And I think a lot of people have that question once they're in it and they see how much is going out the door, because it's not when they're building that they really think about it. It's when that agency is built. Mm-hmm. It's when you're 6 to 8 years down the line. You're looking at what you have. You're going, wow, I'm making decent money. I've actually done it. I've done what 60% of people couldn't do, and my quality of life is better. But at the same time, I'm captive to this model that can shift at any time and tell me that I still need to hire, that I need to produce more, that I need to do X, Y, Z, that they can change my commission structures, that they can tell me I have to opt into new types of technology that give them data on my book. At any time, that group is going to pivot. And that company is going to continue to pivot because they're looking at the profit sheets, right? They're looking at that, their quarterly earnings, and making decisions based on that, right? They're not making decisions based on, hey, I'm an agency owner, I've put 10 years into this and I'm happy with my income level, which is one of the unique things about, I think, different when you're looking at the pure independent space, I'll call it, because I think those franchise models are more of what we endearingly call captive light. Yep. You may have a multitude of carriers, but are you owned is the question. And the thing is when you build in the independent space, you have the availability on those aggregation models to say, hey, I'm at X amount of premium. I'm happy with where I'm at. I'm not going to grow. Yeah. And I even talked to an agency today and they were like, Jessica, we're in this for this point. This is where we're going to be happy. And it is freedom that's driving me there versus this ultimate growth that I just want to blow up. And you know what? I appreciate the candor and transparency in that, because guess what? We can drive and be really good in that partnership when you give those transparent details, right? And that's something we can actually do really well. And we're okay with the lifestyle, but another group may not be.
Well, and I think that's also one thing I want to really clarify on this. Each one of these models has a home for the right person.
100%.
Right? So
I agree with that.
That easy entry cluster model, that for that person that's a true scratch person that isn't sure if this is what they need or what they want to do, right? If they're dipping their toes, that's a great path. That elite agency, I mean, if you're that top 1 to 5% of agencies out there, then yeah, that's probably where you belong. You know, our volume guys, if you're good at being here and you just want a little better, a little richer, great. If you don't need support, you know, and then, and something you said earlier, I think if you're an entrepreneur or you've done well in another career and you want to come in, unlike that easy entry model, if you come into this franchise, the one thing you're going to get a playbook.
Yes.
You're buying that playbook.
It's a defined playbook, and you need to play every step to the T.
And if you execute on it, you will be successful, right? So if that's a vehicle to earn more revenue in a different way, that's phenomenal.
And there are franchise models that work for, I mean, look at how many businesses are franchised. There's a reason why people buy into it.
Exactly.
But there's a lot of people out there that are sitting in franchises that are working way more than they did a W-2 job.
Yep. So all that to say, this is where we have to get into our shameless plug.
Where do we fit?
Where do we fit?
Where do we fit?
I mean, seriously, right? Because we have, as we go through each of these things, I see elements of each one.
I agree with you. It's the uniqueness of our model. And this is the part that brought me back to SIA, right? Is I went out and I looked at all these groups and I talked to SIA and I was like, I don't get it. And I went out and talked to some other groups, and the low barrier easy cluster models, I mean, they're attractive, right? Because it's like, well, it's a no-brainer. Why wouldn't I just start here, start throwing some stuff at it, see what sticks, right? But what are you building? What are you building is the first question. And when you can answer that, that's the first step into having a conversation with us, because then we can get where we need to go. I think one of the most important distinctions to make that I already talked about and harped on quite a bit is that national group, right? The national representation versus the regional. We're the only group I know of that does both really well. And this is something I love to talk about because I think it's really huge and powerful for the individual member. We have the national representation of SIA. We're $17 billion in premium across the US. But that distribution channel is broken down across 49 different master agencies that are all what? Regionally based and focused on their region, with boots on the ground diving into that region to understand how to write there and benefit their members. That's distinctive.
Not just that, but if we have a member, and we're working through this right now, we have a new member that has a lot of coastal. Obviously, in Dallas, we don't have a whole lot of coastal.
Not that I've found.
However, because we have sister master agencies, it's very easy for us to reach out, pick up the phone, and say, hey guys, we have a member, they're writing a ton down there. What markets are really crushing it down here that we need to turn them on to?
Yeah.
And what are those things that we need to watch out for? So even if we're not the subject matter expert, we at least have the resources that are just a literal phone call away.
Yeah. That we can help plug in. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and I think that that's unique because also the timing of when our model was built, right? A lot of cluster aggregation plays, they've been built over the past, I don't know, Sir Isaac, if you can look up this data and correct me, but I think a lot of groups have been built over the past 15 years, I'm going to say, versus we were built in the 80s. So one of the first in the cluster aggregation model. In fact, I think because we started on the East Coast, the SIA model, like the aggregation and network model has penetrated the East Coast a lot more than and it's slowly moved westward. So the exposure there has been better, and we've been able to grandfather in components to our model, like how our MGA operates, how our profit sharing operates. We've been able to grow that and build it in because of our time and space in the industry. Got any unique data?
SIAA was the first out of all of them. That's what you're looking for, right?
Yeah,
Sweet.
That works.
Well, so I mean, that's pretty easy. Nobody's older than us.
Yeah.
So I think that's something that I talk about often is our origin story of Jim Masiello's thought process on bringing together these agencies and then leveraging with it. And it makes sense because Travelers seeded money to SIA to expand it. And so there's some really uniqueness about our model that other groups just aren't going to be able to expand into due to time in the industry, landscape of where things are at now, and also just size.
Yeah. And also, I think coming back to one of the key things for us was the whole idea of we wanted independent agents,
Mm-hmm.
and we wanted them to keep their independence. So that's that whole idea of like a supported independence model,
Mm-hmm.
where we want to provide the right support, but still allow business owners to be business owners,
Mm-hmm.
still allow them to do what they need to do. And just like everybody, there's fees, because everybody has to make a profit, right? At the end of the day, though, our job is to make sure that we give the right support in the right way to enable our members to be as profitable as possible, and whatever that looks like for them.
Mm-hmm.
And I think one of the things that's exciting is, even though we're the oldest, we are a learning organization.
Mm.
So if you look at the way we're actually pivoting in the last 6 months,
Oh, yeah.
changing the way our growth coaches work, changing the way Access Plus mentors work, right? Because it's no longer about just quoting. It's actually now teaching.
Mm-hmm.
So 'cause I think we're probably defining Scratch a little different than the industry would.
100%. Absolutely. I think when we talk about our model that we really look at as supported independence, you're right. Our whole model is focused on giving the independence to the agency. And so what that means is an agency owner actually getting a set of resources and support to say, hey, here's some data points for you. Here's some information. Here's some vendors where we've negotiated better deals with. But at the end of the day, you make the decision.
Mhm.
You make the decision because you're the owner, because we want you to have as much control as possible in this agency to make the decisions that you want to make, and for you to be able to build out that model the way that you see fit. And our team of growth coaches and personal lines and commercial lines mentors, they're there along the way to operate as that travel agent to say, hey, this is where you're at. This is what you need. Cool. Let's point you here. And I think that is a uniqueness because we've got the expansive team. We've got the industry ties. We've got the depth of the model to be able to support a variety of different agency owners in different stages.
Yeah. So let's talk about ownership, because
Fantastic point.
we've talked about in some models you still own everything.
Mm-hmm.
Others, you own nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And some, there's a in-between hodgepodge.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Where do we fit?
I think we do a great job at ownership. And this is actually something that I often ask people is, what's your definition of ownership, right? Because to me and you, ownership is, title in hand kind of a thing where we're going, hey, I can go sell this tomorrow and hand this to you. And I have full control to make that decision, right? To say, hey, here you go. Here's that piece of paper. You gave me an amount of money for something, right? Whereas other groups would define ownership differently, right?
Right.
Ownership to them may be access, and your name is over the umbrella of a certain subset of policies. For us, ownership is giving you the ability to truly have ownership every step of the way. And so you see that from the inception of our agreements and how we structure them, from the entity to the individual. But more importantly, I think it's understanding ownership for the sense of, can I take my business with me if I leave? From how a non-compete is structured to how an exit is structured. And we're pretty transparent about how our exit is structured, that you have the ability to take your codes and your client with you. Because in a relationship business, you need the relationship, but you also need the carriers.
In fact, our agreement actually says we will help transition them out.
Yes. And there's a certain amount of time that you have to actually move business out. That's how much we actually want to work with helping you be a viable business somewhere else, or helping you sell a business, right, to a new owner that may join us, and you have the ability to not inherently join us. So I think that there's a lot of options when we talk about ownership there that's really important. I think the other element is, how are you writing business? Because this is ownership in a lot of ways, right? So when we talk about an insurance, there's the relationship with the clients, but you also have to be able to sell them a product. So it's also the relationship with the carriers.
Mm-hmm.
So you can have a relationship with your client, and that can be called ownership. You can have a relationship with a carrier, and that can be called ownership. I think true ownership is when you have both.
Absolutely. And that's where I completely agree, and that's kind of where I was driving at with some of the other models. You could build, in some of these other models, you could build a 3 million premium, 4 million premium book, and that carrier wouldn't know you from Adam.
Mm-hmm.
No offense to any Adams out
No. No offense to any Adams. Yeah, it's you own the client relationship at that point.
Yeah.
So you have a form of ownership, but here's the reality of it. If you leave, you're hoping that that client relationship is what follows you because you're moving them somewhere else.
Yeah.
And that's if you don't have a stark non-compete that is going to control that.
Well, and that's when it's if they call me, and that's what that's what you have to hope for, right? Is if I leave, will these people call me, or will they just call when that renewal call comes in?
Yeah. Or XYZ carrier, should I say. Yeah, and I think that's one of the most important distinctions that anybody can make when looking at any group, cluster, aggregator, network affiliation is how do I know I own it? And one of the big distinctions is, number one, am I getting paid directly or is a group getting paid and then they're paying me? Because that is evidentiary support on who owns the actual carrier relationship. And that's the first identifying factor on could this viably be moved? And if you're getting paid by another entity, they own the carrier relationship. You're not going to be able to move that without their blessing or without their sign off on something. And the other component is on that direct appointment paperwork. Are you named? Is that with your agency? Is that direct appointment with your agency, right? Yeah. So with us, you're underneath our umbrella. You're going to be identified underneath Comerica Agency Alliance and SIA, but it's going to name your agency still. The entity owner is going to be on that. So that's an important piece because that shows that contract is between you and the carrier.
Yeah. Okay. So briefly, cluster model, great for that person that wants to dip their toes in.
Yeah.
Not really sure if they...
Easy entry cluster model. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. It's not really sure if this insurance thing is what I really want to do.
Core side hustle.
Yeah.
I'm going to go with.
Perfect. Then elite agencies, you guys know who you are. If you don't like them, call us.
We can help.
Then just the true aggregator. That's
these volume models.
I already have a good, well-established agency. I don't need somebody to tell me what to do. Just help me get
coming in for the leveraging, for the negotiation power across the table, and
the franchise. That's great if I have some capital and I don't want to reinvent the wheel. So
I want a defined playbook. I don't want to make all the decisions. I want somebody to give me the playbook and I'll execute it.
Yep.
I think that's
let me run with it, right? So those are 4 profiles that fit kind of like 4 different models.
Mm-hmm.
What's the profile that fits us?
Ooh, supported independence.
Yeah.
You can be a variety of sizes.
Okay.
That's the beauty of us, I think. You can start at that true scratch and we're going to have the resources and support to be able to help you. You can also be a mid-tier agency, a schmedium, and we're going to help aggregate and you're going to increase revenue monumentally. You can also be a medium large, looking for access to some unique markets, some specialized niches that you're trying to dive into, and our team will help build a tailored plan around that. You might be that medium large and you may be stuck in a rut at a plateau trying to figure out how to scale and what are the actual things you need to do in order to scale to that next level. Now we've identified a different layer of business support that we can offer with our elite team, right? I think that the ribbon across all of that really makes it is, do you want to partner?
Yeah.
Do you want to partner? Are you looking for value? Are you looking to communicate? And are you looking to build? Because what we are not looking for and what I don't think works well with our model is somebody that just wants to come, plug in, and not commit and not invest back. The thing about a relationship is that it's both parties, right? And so we don't want to just be an aggregation play. We want to be somebody that's actually investing and helping build with you so that we can scale and we can identify that plan and move forward together. So that cuts across a variety of different buckets. But the difference is that we're identifying, true growth on that supported independence track.
Yeah. And I think one word that comes to my mind is it's really a customizable model.
Yeah.
I mean, even look at the fact that we have 3 different contracts that we can that we can go to.
Oh, so you're saying we're like the Chipotle?
Yeah.
You walk up and you get to make your own. Do you want a burrito today? Do you want a burrito bowl? The world is your oyster. Tortilla or no tortilla?
Yeah. I mean, really, because we have a solution for that scratch person that's a very low entry. It's not as low as some of the others out there, but it's a low entry. It's easy if it doesn't work.
Yeah.
Right?
Still robust resources, though, and access to premier standard carriers that most groups do not have.
Yep. Then we have our standard agreement, which fits most people out there. Then we have a bigger agreement for those, larger agencies that
More on the aggregation play.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, we don't believe that there is a one-size-fits-all, and so we don't operate that way either.
Very nice. So at the end of the day, we have solutions out there that fit everybody, right? So, so I think now the question is, if you're going to ask our audience, how do you know which question to ask to go which model? I mean, some of them are kind of why would I be a $300,000 a year revenue, so $3 million-ish premium? Why would I look at just a basic easy entry, which some of them do, right? So what are the questions that they should be asking themselves to help them decide which model they should look?
Yeah, I mean, I would encourage anybody to sit down and build the business plan themselves, right? If you don't have an agency, what is your agency going to look like? What target markets are you going to play in? What are the risk factors? What are you going to invest? What is your marketing strategy? All of that. Because when I start answering my questions, then I can look at models and I'm comparing against where I'm going to go versus trying to look at them and then decide where I'm going to go.
Yeah.
So for anybody, it's sitting down and identifying their plan first.
Well, and probably even easier, and I loved what you did very recently. You actually had a person write out more of a narrative about why they're wanting to start their agency.
Yeah.
And that to me is, if you're looking at a network and they're not asking you to do something like that, that to me is a red flag, because it's perfect. It helps them understand and really get clarity where they want to go, and also tells us whether or not we could help you.
Yeah, I mean, what's the lifeblood of your agency? What drew you to this, and what's going to drive you to build it? I think that's a huge question in Scratch. And honestly, it's a huge question when there's an agency that's plateaued and wants growth. What's really driving you to commit to growing this? Because it's hard if everything's paid for and you are not driven predominantly by money.
Yeah.
Right?
Are you willing to invest?
Time, value, I mean, time, financials, there's a lot of components to go into that, right? And so I think that's why it goes back to, getting that narrative on paper.
Yeah.
Business owner, business plan, numbers, goals, but also why do I want to do this and what's going to drive me to do it? Because there are stages, I think, for all of us in our lives, or for most of us, where there are other things that outweigh business sometimes. And it's just a reality of seasons that people go through depending on where they're at in life. And so it's being realistic with yourself first on what are we putting into that. Once I think somebody has an identifiable plan, that's where the magic really happens, right? Because if somebody comes in and says, I have 4 businesses, and this is going to be a great business to add on to my other 4 businesses, and I'm looking for the, lowest barrier to entry with the lowest everything as far as commitment in order to do this, I'm going, side hustle, there we go, equals, right?
Perfect. Go.
And that is, hey, go run in this lane,
right?
And that answers a lot of questions. So getting that down, if it's somebody that's like, hey, I'm really happy where I'm at in the lifestyle agency, I'm just looking to aggregate right now because, I need some leveraging power across the landscape of the current insurance industry because it's fragmented, then, hey, here's some options, right?
And I think that's also, there's a great quote by Margaret Millar. Some people become so expert at reading between the lines that they fail to read the lines.
Ooh.
Right.
Wow.
And so it's,
hits home a bit.
Yeah. So, I mean, we get so good at trying to figure out the nuances that sometimes we get too smart and we just fail to actually recognize that what's being presented is what it is.
I think it's a great point.
So let's just ask ourselves the right questions and then pick out the duck that fits.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I see a lot of that as people walk in and they don't inherently know what they're looking for. They're like, well, I reached out to 10 different groups and I think I'm comparing apples to apples. And the reality is you're not comparing apples to apples.
No, we've got an apple, a steak, a potato, and some Bluebell ice cream all sitting on the plate.
A true Texas plate, if I do say so myself. You really finish it off with the Bluebell there. Our food analogies today are that is the theme. Not surprised. But I think that's a really good point, right? Is somebody walks in and they're like, well, I'm just comparing all these. And I have a lot of those conversations. They're staring at me and they're like, that doesn't make sense. And I'm like, because you're looking at this like it's all the same.
But in reality,
you're comparing, it's not. So you got to get really clear what you're doing here. And a lot of times I think too, people do kind of get clear here, but it doesn't actually fit with the industry. And that's a reality connect that needs to happen often.
Yeah.
And so if you can't find a partner that's willing to help you kind of figure some of that out,
exactly,
you're not there yet.
So awesome. Well, before we wrap up, any last thoughts? Did we miss anything? Because at the end of the day, I want to make sure that anybody that's listening, anybody that has a genuine interest in joining a group, really want them to have that right information so they can find the right home for them, their agency, and their business.
You know, I think what's really important in kind of last thoughts here is in 2026, group and network affiliations are becoming more important than they ever have before because the independent agency owner, their ability to compete is reducing just with how things are changing, with how groups are growing in different ways and the difficult components of market with direct, with AI. There's going to continue to be components that create difficulties. And so for any agency that is starting out, it's kind of a must unless they're out of the box somehow, that they have some type of network or group affiliation. So going through the process of figuring out what is best for you. And I think that the other thing is really understand your contract. I mean, there are components to all of it, and contracts are written to be contracts and be able to be utilized in worst case scenarios, right? And I try to operate from a lens of ultimate transparency and talk about how things can play out. I don't know that that's always how things are talked about. So just taking the time to really understand your contract and how that can potentially play out is going to bring a lot more clarity no matter what the person is saying in the seat. You know, I can say a lot of things, but the contract is going to tell you what our relationship is going to entail. So
read the lines, not just between them.
Yep. Read the lines. As painful as it is, read the lines. And I think that, you know, we're working on some material internally right now with marketing to get out there. We have an FAQ document, and I try to send it to most prospects that I talk to, which is like, hey, these are just the core questions you want to ask. Yeah. Ask them to me, ask them to everybody that you talk about. And you know what? Once you ask them, there's probably going to be 5 more things behind it that get stirred up. But it's important that you ask these questions. And so we're working on some of that material. And I think the last piece is, again, what we've talked about, which is reiterate your plan. What is the vision for the agency? And if a group can tell you how to execute a good part of that vision or can give you insight into if that vision fits what they can do well, that's really where I think you want to keep going.
Agreed. All right. So, we have our routine.
What's my, yes.
That's, your book, movie, quote.
Okay.
What is something that you have heard recently or read recently that's made an impact?
How about a book I started recently that was recommended to me to read?
And I see Crucial Conversations.
Crucial Conversations. Yes, I just started this book. So for anybody who wants to go along this journey with me, Crucial Conversations, Tools for Talking When Stakes Are High. Best-selling authors, Patterson, Grenny, McMillan, Switzler. I was not going to remember all of the authors.
All right.
But that's the path that I'm on. It's been good so far.
Very nice. Wonderful book. Highly recommend it. Read it a couple times myself. So.
Well, there we go. What about yours, Chad?
All right. So mine, I'm going to do a quote.
Okay. You've been on a quote train. Lately.
I have.
Yeah.
It fits good. My attention deficit disorder. So I can read, but in short spurts. So
listening.
Yes. So mine is actually a quote from Charles Spurgeon.
Okay.
So obviously I didn't hear him, seeing he's been dead for quite a while. But it actually fit in line with our conversation today, and it's discernment is not a matter of telling the difference between right and wrong. Rather, it's the difference between right and almost right. So whether that's spiritually, which he was referring to, or business, if we're joining a network, lots of times the differences that we're trying to discern are not as black and white as right and wrong. It's what's right versus almost right. And what's right for me may not be the same as everybody else.
Yeah, that actually reminds me of another quote, and I don't know where I got it from or who it originated from, but there's a lot of great almosts out there.
Yeah.
That's in every form of relationship and really in business that you can think of, right? I mean, I think most business owners would say there's just as many opportunities that they've potentially passed than what they've actually acted on. So That's great. I love that quote on discernment. That's a big piece.
Awesome.
It's a good ending.
Yes, it is. So, well, thank you so much for your time. And one final thought for all of our audience out there is if you are looking to grow an independent agency, make sure whoever you join, whether it's us, another group out there, make sure that they are working just as hard to expand and support your independence as you are. So with that, until next time, onward and upward.